know that K1 had an altercation with people around the plane. And while the pilot was trying to taxi the plane, K1 kept on moving in front of the plane. That's wrong. 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 Who do you think you are, mister? Who do you think you are?
In this country, we have what is called the big man syndrome. If you are a big man, you can get away with anything. The same Kwamwan who was fighting at the airport would not have done that in the US. He would not have done it in the UK. In fact, he would have been arrested on the spot and thrown into detention for sabotaging and posing a threat to the lives of other passengers and for blocking aviation operations.
Hello there, welcome back to Talk City. Well, a lot of people have been asking this particular question: what is really going to happen now? Can a minister actually suspend K1 the ultimate from boarding flights for 6 months, even with his strong ties to the president, that is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, because we all know how close they are? Well, for those who didn't catch the full gist, let me break it down quickly because I have some clips I want to play for you. According to reports, K1 the Ultimate was trying to board a jet at the Abuja airport, carrying a bottle with more than 100 ml of liquid, which clearly goes against aviation safety rules. Instead of following protocol, he allegedly insisted on his way, acting like a VIP. Now, the pilot, Oluranti, she tried to step in and raise concern, but shockingly, nothing was done, and the flight still took off. The authorities have now spoken, condemning K1 for breaching safety and even questioning the pilot's conduct. While Dr Abati and Rufai Oseni also weighed in heavily on arrest news, and what they said would definitely spark more reactions, seriously. But before I play that clip for you, now, if you are new here, welcome. This platform is all about keeping you updated with what is really going on, whether it is trending news, politics, or national issues that affect everyday Nigerians. And if you enjoy content like this, just do me one favor, hit the subscribe button and make sure you turn on the notification bell so anytime I drop fresh and new updates like this, you don't go miss out. And a big shout out to all my returning subscribers. I really appreciate you for coming back. Now, take a listen.
That obviously lots of people listen and watch Arise News. And videos came out and I was shell-shocked at what I saw. So, like yesterday, I was positive what Dr. Rumfeld said, from known to unknown. So what do I know today? Now I know that there was a flask because I saw it in the video. In fact, it was a gold-colored flask. I know there was a flask. The content in the flask, I don't know. Secondly, I know that K1 had an altercation with people around the plane. And while the pilot was trying to taxi the plane, K1 kept on moving in front of the plane. That's wrong. 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 Who do you think you are, mister? Who do you think you are? To stay in front of a plane. You were provoking the pilot deliberately. It's wrong because it didn't go your way. You didn't get on board the plane. You didn't listen to the rules and regulation. You were deplaned. Then you stood in front of the plane. The plane will not go. Is this Mushin bus stop? No, it's a tarmac. Totally wrong. The pilot too was also wrong. Whatever the case might be, out of provocation, you hold people's lives in your hands. Despite the fact that you people were there, you attempted to move, that they had to dock under the plane. That was equally wrong. But from what I saw yesterday, it doesn't put K1 in any glory. And please, the assertion is spokesperson is trying to push that because the owner of the jet, the airline called him and everything. No. The owner of the jet will normally try to placate things. Does not mean that you were totally right because the owner of the jet was not there. I'm sure if he saw this video, he will not be happy with K1. So it is totally wrong. So all the aspersions they cast on K1 yesterday, I totally support it. What he did was totally wrong, and I'm happy Professor Skiamo have put his big stick on the ground. They're going to investigate. In fact, NCA said they've petitioned the Attorney General of the Federation. They've petitioned all those necessary. They've put him on a no-fly list for 6 months. Nobody should pick him up. I don't know if that applies to private jets, but even private jet operators too should watch it. We must not condone such a thing in the country. What is bad is bad. It has no more than one name. It's bad. So I condemn K1 this morning. Secondly, as regards Mr. Sunday Dare reacting, you see, I would like to beg this government. We don't sit here and just love to criticize. We criticize because things are not well. And because we're also suffering too. And I'm sure you that are responding to that, article written by the Daily Trust, you are also feeling the pinch. So, Mr. Sunday Dare, in a bit of trying to react to an article, posited nothing in the end. You said Daily Trust, you were reacting to a UNICEF report, prediction that people will be now malnourished, more people will have to need food, 30 million people. You said you brought about scheme with fertilizer and everything. Can you also give us the outcome of those schemes you brought about? You see, that was just like what we're asking Dr. Zoma that came here the other day. That's okay, give us the empirical facts of what you have put in. You see, there's something called garbage in, garbage out. If you put thousands of fertilizer bags in for farmers and you help farmers, there must be an end result. So what was the end result as a result of that? And how did that help cushion the effects of poverty? So people cannot, you can't say people should not talk when they are feeling the pangs of hunger. You talked about people being malnourished after COVID. They are trying the best. They are doing school feeding program. Has it stopped people being malnourished? Because people like UNICEF and these NGOs are the ones on the field. They are the ones that are giving people pellets to cure hunger. There are kids that are being malnourished in parts of the north. Is it because we don't bring out the videos and show every time? Mr. Sunday Dare, you were also reacting. You felt offended because they say the Naira is worthless. The Naira is worthless now as we speak. Should I give you the empirical facts? When our journalists went to Côte d'Ivoire for the World Cup, do you know, because most of them had not gone to West African countries in a while, they were surprised of how worthless the Naira was to the CFA. The same CFA that the Naira used to worth more than before. There used to be, in fact, there was someone that was telling me a running joke that one Alhaji in the 90s promised a lady 1 million. So he didn't tell her the currency. So in the end, he said he promised the lady 1 million CFA. So they were laughing because 1 million CFA was 16,000 Naira. Today, CFA is going to 2 times the Naira. You want another fact that Naira is worthless? The Naira is undervalued. A currency that is undervalued definitely has lost a lot of its worth. The other day, Prof was here, and we're talking about the fair value of Naira. If you use purchasing power parity, PPP parameter, it's supposed to be around 500 or 600 to the dollar. If you use ref parameter, it's supposed to be about over 1,000 to the dollar. Today is 1,005 something. So, and that also passes through inflationary positions into our currency. It's undervalued. So a currency that is undervalued, when you look in relative terms, the Naira is not as what it used to worth before. And people are complaining. We want this country to do well. That's why we talk every time. And please, it's best you people in government to listen. When you do well, when we see the fact, we'll report it and celebrate. We are all Nigerians. We are all in this together.
The most basic thing in aviation is security, is safety. I think it was shocking yesterday that we had the news that King Wasiu Ayinde Marshal Anifuoshe, popularly known as Kwam One, found himself in a situation whereby he had to be engaging the flight authorities with regard to the fact that he was carrying a plastic container, which they said was containing liquid above the limit. The nature of that liquid, even Keyamo, the Minister of Aviation himself, says it doesn't matter. But rules are rules. Now, he refused to drop that flask. He insisted on carrying it onto the flight. That led into an altercation with the pilot, the captain of the flight, who said that flask must be dropped. He refused. The pilot insisted on his being ejected from the flight, upon which he decided to go and stand in front of the aircraft to say that the aircraft would not move. And the Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development has provided video evidence to that effect, that he was trying to obstruct the flight what Festus Keyamo, the minister, described as a hostage situation. So one, according to aviation rules, safety is important. No person who is flying has the right to jeopardize the interest, the safety, the security of the aircraft itself, and also of all passengers and crew members on board. Two, the minister went a step further to say, however, if the passenger misbehaves in this manner, the pilot also should not have said, oh, I will run the flight, and then you have a passenger running and blocking up and down. And that in itself is something that is totally unacceptable, as Festus Keyamo put it. So this is the background. Now, how was the matter treated? The pilot was now placed on suspension. Our license was suspended. And then Keyamo came in after reviewing the evidence provided by the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority and said, no, both parties are wrong. Captain Oluranti has no right to say she will fly while there was a passenger standing in front trying to hold the flight to stage, and in fact, by extension, trying to commit suicide. And that the other party should also be punished. And it is on the basis of that that the minister directed that Quam 1 should be placed on a no-flight suspension for 6 months. So, having established the background and the facts of the case, my opinion is that the minister acted well by preventing a situation whereby the big man syndrome prevailed, because it was the pilot that was first sanctioned, saying we are suspending your license. The minister now said, no, the passenger also behaved very badly. You know, in this country, we have what is called the big man syndrome. If you are a big man, you can get away with anything. The same Quam 1 who was fighting at the airport would not have done that in the US. He would not have done it in the UK. In fact, he would have been arrested on the spot and thrown into detention for sabotaging and posing a threat to the lives of other passengers and for blocking aviation operations. So Nigerians first have to learn the lesson about big manism. ValueJet is owned by an Ijebu man. Now, Quam 1 is the Olori Omoba Akile Ijebu, you know, a very prominent Ijebu chieftain. He should realize that the Ijebu kingdom does not exist, does not extend to the Murtala Mohammed Airport. No, that's an empirical fact.
No, I take exception.
No, it's an empirical fact. It does not extend. This is federal government territory. You don't go there and overrule federal authority because you are a chieftain of a kingdom within the sovereignty of Nigeria. The third point is that some people have also read, you know, gender relations into it. A Kwaman saying, I'm a big man, who the hell are you? Pilot. But you see, that's the space of the pilot. And that's why I think that Rontilicious, as she's otherwise called, you know, she also be protected. She's a pilot, she has a right to say, I don't want to carry this passenger. I think that's part of ICAO rules. So it's Kwaman trying to overrule ICAO regulations. But what is important at the end of the day is that, you know, the Ministry of Aviation, NCAA, they've said they are going to investigate, and investigations are ongoing. And whatever they come out with, there's nobody that is above the laws of Nigeria. Whether you are a bosom friend of the president or the Olori Omo Akile Ijebu or whatever, that's irrelevant. When it comes to aviation, where security is very important. And I think that people should speak of for Mrs. Oluranti Ogoyi, who became a full captain in 2021 and who has had experience in this regard. Her husband is even also a pilot. So all the investigations, you look at the circumstances that prevailed. But I know that in Nigeria, you know, they try to bury things. So Keyamo has shown courage. He must not chicken out. even if he receives pressure from the villa. What is that other matter about Tinubu not being indifferent to difficulties that people are facing? I think the big point made by Sunday Dari, the advisor to the president, is simply that the media should not be biased. It's simply that the media should not misinform people. And he provided evidence to say there may be difficulties, but we must put it in context of the fact that this government is working. But his concern was that, look, the Daily Trust editorial was saying that Nigeria is facing a lot of hunger, government is not doing anything, and all that. All of us must watch out for the danger of extremism, whereby you see only one side of the coin and you condemn it. We know there is hunger in the land. We know there is hardship in the land. We know that people in certain situations, like the people who are in internally displaced camps, consider themselves helpless, even hopeless. But the media is also a stabilizing force in society. And he has taken on the Daily Trust. I believe that the editors, the managers of the Daily Trust, they have the capacity to say, well, either we stand by our story or we apologize. Although Sunday Dari said Daily Trust has had to apologize to the Tinubu administration twice in the past. So it's on both sides. A reaction to the media, not just Daily Trust, but to everybody in that space about bias and misinformation, but also a challenge to the Tinubu administration to know that there are people, because an editorial these days is not written by just a ghost. You know, editorials are written by informed persons, saying that there is poverty in the land, there is helplessness in the land, there is hunger in the land. The primary responsibility of the administration, whether it's Tinubu or any other person, is to address those challenges and to provide proof that we are addressing these challenges, and this is the outcome. Input, output, outcome. Some people will use the phrase in economic impact analysis, impact. We need to see the impact so that more Nigerians will not complain.
Issues that pertain to us as the Fourth Estate. And I go as far back as the 18th century, because it was Edmund Burke who actually came up with the term called the Fourth Estate. How did it come about? It's because in those days, in the UK parliamentary system, journalists were actually prohibited from reporting on parliamentary debates. So the first estate were the clergymen. The second estate were the nobility. And the third estate were the commoners, represented by the House of Commons. But there was a growing culture where journalists were now being allowed into parliamentary debates and were now allowed to report widely on what was happening in Parliament. And because of this growing influence on public opinion, that's when Edmund Burke pointed to the gallery where the journalists sit and said, "There lies the Fourth Estate." Why am I bringing this to light? I'm bringing this to light because journalism has evolved over the years. So in the 18th century, around that time, especially in Europe, you'll find that journalism was just about reporting government notices. It was just about, it was almost an administrative exercise. It was not an exercise that embodied the values of being a watchdog, embodied the values of accountability, embodied the values of ensuring that the public is enlightened and that the public good is advocated for and protected. Now, I read the article by the Daily Trust called "Nigerians Are Hungry." In fact, this morning, Daily Trust have republished that article. And I read it quite a few times because I was looking for the bias. Because throughout the article, there were several times in which the Daily Trust actually referred to government interventions. For example, the Daily Trust referred to the suspension of VAT and said that, yes, this has actually resulted in some form of impact, but yet there's still a serious crisis with regards to affordability of food specifically. They spoke about the school feeding programs with light to malnutrition and getting children into school. And they said, yes, this has been done. However, in many places it's fizzling out. They spoke about interest rates and said that, yes, the private sector have been advocating for the reduction of interest rates because they too are also struggling with with regards to accessing capital at the high cost and how it's being passed down to the consumer. And then they even made recommendations, and they said, well, they recommend that if possible, the government needs to release some grain as soon as possible because more palliatives are required. All in all, the article in itself, yes, as much as it painted some harsh truths, it also did acknowledge a number of government interventions. Now, we need to be careful when doing, the work of government enlightenment, if I may call it that, not to start to intimidate the press. It's very important because if anybody reads that article called Nigerians Are Hungry by Daily Trust, I don't think that there's inherent bias because everything that was said was supported by facts, and it was also balanced in that they also spoke of government interventions and even went as far as saying the state governments also need to do more at the subnational level. So I think it's very important that we continue to protect the fourth estate and that we stand together with an esprit de corps, because in this particular instance, yes, there was reference to some other incidents, but in this particular instance, I've read the article and I honestly don't see anything worthy of causing any uproar about and any long write-ups. Yes, the government should continue to educate us and enlighten us about their interventions. You can never over-communicate policies. However, the press should also stand firm in reporting the truth and should always ensure that there is fairness and balance in doing so. Now,
just one detail about
yes.
scholarship. Edmund Burke, talking about fourth estate of the realm, that was in 1749, in the 18th century, English Parliament. The basis for freedom of expression was established by John Milton in the Areopagitica in 1644. So, it even dates much back. But there's always this tension between freedom of speech, freedom of expression, accountability, and government all over the world. The worst ones being the totalitarian, authoritarian administrations, whether the Soviet Union or Trump's United States.
It be things. Now you've heard everything from what really happened on that flight to how the authorities and even respected voices like Dr. Abati are reacting. Seriously, this OK1 versus aviation saga no be small thing. But let's be honest, and this is what I saw on the internet. According to the person, if an aircraft has already been cleared for takeoff, the pilot has no business with noisemakers on the ground. His or her job is to fly. Very simple. The real question now is, where were people still on ground trying to help pursue? Those are the ones that truly violated safety protocols. And to be clear, if you attempt to hold a commercial aircraft hostage, that is no longer a joke. It is an act of terrorism. If OASU doesn't end up spending a lot of time behind bars for this, then we already know what's up. My people, like I said, it be things. So let's talk about it in the comments. Was the pilot wrong? Was K1 just being entitled, and who should really be punished here? Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. More real talk and updates coming your way. Stay tuned.